Hello guys, my name is Maor Benaim. Some of you know me as The Wolf from YouTube or social media. I came up with the name just because my name sounds like a horny cat when people try to say it and pronounce it like Maor. So I came up with The Wolf, no special reason for that. I'm gonna speak about some Google ads, specifically YouTube. And that presentation is really special because it's gonna go into a certain level of depth that's going to, the purpose was going to really create a fast baseline of profitability on YouTube to help you just like get into the green and then scale from there. Okay, so I'm gonna start and then probably just go through the presentation in a minute. So let me tell you guys about myself. One cool thing that's special about me is that I'm doing kind of like the whole 360. I'm an affiliate marketer. I'm a media buying agency that's kind of like left from whatever I was doing in the past 10, 12 years now. And I also own brands now, so both online and offline. So with my brands, we're doing a bunch of stuff. One cool thing is that I own a luxury fitness center back in Israel. We started branching out. So we opened up a bunch of places. During COVID, we pivoted into opening up an online workouts application. So we're doing live streams, we're doing the whole thing. So we scaled up to the point that we partnered up with the biggest TV channel in Israel. And now we're the biggest application in Israel. Another brand that I own is Nunc, N-U-N-C, which is my vitamins and supplements brand. We had to change the name a few times. I've gone through such a road. I remember I started 2 years ago, and back then I was like completely sure that I know how to do e-commerce and stuff like that. And oh my God, I paid my tuition during those 2 years, just like learning everything from price points and just like writing upsells and stuff like that. Thing is that I'm what I call and kind of like invented a full stack media buyer. So a full stack media buyer nowadays, most affiliate marketers or just media buyers at an agency would be 95% Facebook ads buyers. And I feel like iOS 14 kind of like pushed a lot of people into trying to do some Google ads, try to just like pivot and expand into other platforms and stuff like that. So a full stack media buyer for me is, first of all, someone who knows and spends his own money across multiple platforms. And I'm talking about even Rev content and I don't know, like Tap Native and these like small native companies. So I'm all about that. And I also feel like a media buyer nowadays isn't quite what it used to be 4 years ago, when you were just like writing a bunch of stuff, getting like really shitty creatives, uploading them, publishing them, and running the campaign. I feel like a full stack marketer nowadays needs to be a video editor to a certain degree. I mean, not just doing like really professional video editing and photo shoots like VSCAP or the other creative agencies are doing. But I feel like you need a certain point, a certain level of just like editing skills and copywriting skills and knowing how to A/B test and write pre-renders and having the technical knowledge in how to post back and do those kinds of things. So that's how I feel about, where would I stand? I'll stand here. So I'm 32 years old. Like I needed that slide to remind myself to tell you how old I am. So I'm 32 years old, used to live in Jerusalem. Now I live in Tel Aviv. My background story, which I like to tell because it's kind of like a rags to riches story. We were living at the second largest and poorest city in Israel. My dad, believe it or not, was a DJ at the time, which is crazy. Not a lot of people know it, and I think it's the first time I talked about it. But he got injured in the army and was unable to work at a certain point. So he had to undergo surgery, a spinal cord surgery, without even going under anesthesia and stuff. He stopped working and he didn't save any money and stuff like that. My mother wasn't working at the time, and there was a certain point in time where I could hear my mother talk to her sister, and she basically asked her for help, financial help. And I remember I was standing inside my room and I listened to that conversation between her and her sister, and I told myself, I'm gonna be a millionaire by the time that I get to 30 years old. From that point on, it was so intense, and my life kind of like became kind of like a movie. I made my first million 10 months after. I was working at this media buying agency, and I was researching and working all day long. So throughout breaks, when I got back home, when I almost went to sleep, and when I woke up, I was adding people on Facebook, joining groups, reading in forums, and I got into affiliate marketing, and I started doing some weight loss stuff. And yeah, that's it. You know, back then, the guys at the media buying agency couldn't even understand what I'm doing and how I'm like, you know, I didn't go out, I didn't do anything. I was just like learning. So that's what I was doing. So yeah, I told you about myself. I have a bunch of stuff. That's Nunk, the vitamins and supplements company that I own. Boost and Boost Online is the fitness center. I talked about a full stack media buyer. Again, I think that any media buyer nowadays needs to do the whole thing. You need to have the whole 360. You need to have the knowledge. You need to know how to connect the trackers, the postbacks, how to write good ads. You need to be dynamic. Just because when you start scaling, when you start spending north of 5 figures a day on any platform, you need to have the ability not to be dependent on any developer, any graphic designer to just create creatives for you and stuff like that. You need to be able to move fast. And I feel like for me, I have teams and I have like CEOs and employees on each and every part of my company. But I just like to be completely in control. So I like to do those things on my own. And yeah, just like I was talking. Okay, that's the talk that we're gonna do today. So again, this talk is going to be Google Ads, and it's going to be specific on YouTube and how to kind of like create the initial structure that I use. This is the stuff that I use today, right now. And I am spending my own money. So I've lost a bunch of money. My theory is, and that's exactly why I started my YouTube channel, which I can't find the motivation nowadays to create more videos. So I need you to push me. So subscribe to my channel, add me on stuff. I'm gonna push you into adding me and following me, just because I do not have any friends. So when I upload pictures or propose to my future girlfriend, which I don't have right now, I need you to like my images and pictures and stuff. So again, I am spending my own money, and I'm all about sharing knowledge for free. I know some of the people in the industry would like to keep things and knowledge to themselves. There is a kind of like way of thinking. It's like a 50% of the audience would think, oh my God, I'm making money, I'm not gonna share anything. I'm not about that. I am about like all about sharing knowledge, giving everything that I can. So if you guys want to come with a laptop, Geekout is all about me. I would go through your campaigns, stuff that I usually charge a shit ton of money on. I would just give you advice and stuff like that. So use me. I'm on a good day. Usually I'm not that nice. So we're gonna start talking about basic YouTube stuff just for those guys. I heard some guys running on Google Ads, super excited about it. I'm gonna share some basic YouTube stuff. And by the way, if any of you have any type of like question or something, just stop me in the middle. Or if my Hebrew accent is too much, let me know and I will start talking differently. So YouTube, okay? What you need to know. First of all, YouTube is the second largest search engine, and we're gonna learn how to take advantage of the fact that it is a search engine and a big ass search engine. And the second thing, which I just decided to put on the same slide for some reason, is that sometimes when you launch campaigns on Google, people would go on my talks and stuff, and they would launch a YouTube campaign, sometimes even like a discovery display campaign, and they would start overspending. Like, for example, the daily budget would be $200 or $100, and they would spend like $400 or $500. And I'm gonna tell you about that. So, and I wanna just explain why I think overspending isn't really a real issue. Okay, so the first couple of days, usually the 2 first days when you launch a campaign inside Google, it's going to overbid sometimes and kind of like want to kind of like get the right bid and stuff like that. So usually it would just like overspend up to twice as much. But the cool thing, and you guys could hack and kind of like manipulate the system into your advantage, is that the system would only charge you up to twice as much. So if you go and the daily budget would be 200, the system spends 500, you got $100 worth of free traffic. And I actually know guys that are using that to really just like get free traffic. So I don't know how sustainable is that, but you can use that. The way that you would actually look into how much money was actually spent is by going under reports, going into other, and then you would have the build cost. Okay, so that's where you actually see how much you spend. Don't get nervous. That's how the system reacts. You need to remember, if you're transitioning from Facebook to Google, you need to remember that the system doesn't work just like, oh my God, when I said Google, my Google phone just like opened up. So I'm sorry if everyone has, I would say, I would go like, hey Google. No, but now it opened up again. So don't get nervous. I added that slide just because people got nervous. The campaigns and the accounts were overspending. So that's how you really check it. Another thing that you need to know about Google in general, and that really relates to what I'm going to talk about with YouTube. There is a different kind of like attribution, and I think a lot of people got into attribution with iOS 14. That became a big thing. When you are an affiliate, you only care about the direct conversions, the one day after click, the right, just like the conversion that comes really after that person clicks on your ad, because you don't care about the brand and stuff like that. But what I would recommend, that if you run a brand or run ads for a brand, that you would go, when you set up your conversion stuff, into your conversion, just edit it, or when you just create it, your attribution model needs to be something like time decay. Why? Because especially with cold traffic on YouTube, you would start seeing people that are converting 6 hours later, a day later, stuff like that, and you don't want to optimize based just on conversions that would go and just like convert right away. You'll be making decisions based on just like wrong data, okay? You want to know the correct channels, the videos, the placements, everything to really make really good optimization decisions. Time decay is what I found that works best for brands, because the system would attribute a part of the conversion in ratio to the time where the user clicked. Okay, so that's a big thing, and I urge you to do that. Okay, so another big thing that you need to remember if you are transitioning from Facebook to YouTube, or Google in general, is that YouTube is kind of like a plug and play kind of like system. You publish the campaigns, you go, and the campaign usually would start to convert. You would get answers right away if that campaign is good, or it needs to be killed, or needs to be changed. With Google, it doesn't really work that way. You wanna understand that you have to help the system target. Some campaigns would work really wide like Facebook does, but you need to help the system, and you need to make sure that, especially if you're just opening up a new account and stuff like that, you wanna make sure that you give the system enough time. Okay, so only go into Google when you either have the patience and you are a professional marketer and you know that it's going to take time for the system and the algo to really learn and get there. We're gonna start talking about the initial campaign structure that I have set up for you. And again, this is just about creating a situation and an atmosphere inside the account where you have the conversion set up, you have your audiences set up, and you are ready to create a small baseline of profitability. This is a large kind of like structure because it's going to touch a lot of different types of targetings. You do not have to use all of it, but I do think that just because YouTube is such an ocean of traffic, using those specific, really niche targetings would help you create that baseline of profitability and just like scale from there. Okay, so the structure is going to have a couple of placements and types of targetings. We're gonna do discovery, remarketing, costume intent, in-market audience, channel targeted, suggested audiences, and we're gonna do similar sites. You wanna take a picture? Okay, so let's start with the discovery campaign. If there is anything to take from this talk, that would be it, okay? Some of you who are running on Google might use that. Most of you aren't. The way I know it is because I talk to people who work at Google, and I know that people aren't getting that campaign into their thing, okay? So discovery is one of the biggest game changers with my campaign. Discovery is a different kind of ads, and most of you are missing it just because of the way you open up a campaign. So that campaign, for me, is kind of like an uncharted territory because it would show up ads not as like those 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 skip ad, just as like discovery ads would be just like search results within when a person either searches for a specific thing or when he's inside your targeted or targeting group. So you get to actually just optimize according to CTR and stuff like that, and not based on like the view time and stuff like that, okay? That's how I got to run ads for my YouTube channel, and I actually got emails from people telling me, oh my God, I was looking for how to scale Google Ads or stuff like, or how to do some native stuff on Taboola, and I saw your stuff, and it's crazy. So that's how the preview of the ads would look like. And the cool thing is that you get to optimize according to the thumbnail, the headlines, and the descriptions, okay? And to tell you a little secret that's going to be filmed, and hopefully by the time some of you watch it, these people already took advantage of it, but policy doesn't really get as aggressive as they are with thumbnails, headlines, and descriptions. So you can do a bunch of stuff like arrows, like frames and stuff, and really optimize according to CTR and get more clicks and get the CPC down, of course. So it's really analog in a way where you remember how natives were when we, like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, before smart bid, before the system was more complex, we were basing it more on like CTR, trying to get the CPC down. It was more analog than it is right now. And this is how it works right now. So that's a really cool thing. I'm not reading my notes, and hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. So the fact that I told you that people or you might be missing on that, and the reason is that most people that are opening up a campaign on Google would get that window. Anyone here knows that window? Amazing. Thank you guys. So most of you would go either with sales or leads, and that's okay. 99% would go. But when you do that, you miss out on the YouTube search results because it's going to be blackened out. You couldn't really press it, you couldn't do it, or you couldn't run solely on that placement, okay? So how you would open up a a YouTube discovery thing is creating a campaign without a goals guidance. That's that thing here on the far right, okay? When you're doing that, you would have the option of really choosing just like under placements, under the networks tab, that's what they call it now, just YouTube search results, okay? So when you do that, the whole thing would change, like, because right now when you choose sales or leads, it just kind of like guides you into a certain type of like campaign. And when you do create a campaign without a goals guidance, you would see that the way that you even create the ad kind of like changes into the discovery model. So anyone here knows about discovery ads? I just wanna, so Jam knows about it, Andrews, you guys are running it, perfect. The other guys are gonna take advantage of it. Don't get our CPCs up if you're running on the States. Okay, So, I mean, you can target anything you want under that campaign, but I think that you would be taking the biggest advantage, obviously, is the fact that people are searching for specific stuff. So I like to use two types of targetings within that specific placement. And that's kind of like the baseline. And again, this is just like the base laser, narrow targeted audience that I want you to start off with. Doesn't matter if you have a fitness app, if you're doing weight loss and supplements you said that you're doing, whatever, the cosmetics, I think you or someone over there, yes, you. So whatever you're doing, there are two types of targetings that I would want you to open up. The first one would be just search results. So go add keywords inside the campaign and just like list it. Okay, that's what I want you to do. Just people who search for specific keywords would get those ads. Pretty simple. It's almost like doing search ads. If you're running search ads, it's just going to be less saturated and just like less pricier. So why not take advantage of the second largest campaign? I hear people running on Google and then they tell me, oh my God, search traffic is amazing. It works for us. I almost did a James Van Elswyk impersonation right now. Oh my God, Google Ads works for us. And then they would transition or scale into Google Ads, but Bing Ads. But I would tell them, why not go with the second largest search engine, which is YouTube? And that's how you kind of like run a search campaign within YouTube. The second thing would be doing custom intent audiences. And there are two kinds of custom intent audiences. The first one, let's see if that's the second one. No, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about the two kinds of like custom intent in just like a moment when we get to the custom intent thing. But those are like the two types of targeting. So search keywords and custom intent. I'm going to talk about how to create a custom intent audience right in just a few seconds. The second campaign that I want you to create is so essential. It's so obvious to me, but most of the campaigns and accounts that I would audit wouldn't have a remarketing campaign, which for me is crazy. Guys, doesn't matter where you are running, even if you're not running cold traffic on Google and most of your traffic comes from Facebook or natives, you need to make sure that you have a remarketing campaign within Google. It's getting those, just like it's money on the floor that you just pick up. I'm not joking. You pay so much money for that traffic, that cold traffic that's coming from Facebook, coming from natives, and people don't decide nowadays right out of the gate if they want to purchase or not. They have a research, a discovery loop. They go on other sites to make sure that they're not being drop shipped to. And they want to make sure that the product that they buy is legit. It's the right price. They would have a good customer service, like Gorgeous that we're using on Nunk, and just create a remarketing campaign. So I'm gonna go in depth, but what I highly suggest is that when you create the account, for me, a Google account in any platform, when I just set it up, it's almost like a chef's kitchen. I would like everything to be in order. So I would go inside my audience management thing and I would create an audience that would be a 7-day, let's see, yes, no. So a 7-day, 14-day, 30-day, 90-day, 360-day audience. So I would be able to optimize according to that. I'm going to talk about it when we start talking about how to scale. But again, open up that remarketing campaign. Make sure that you have a discovery remarketing campaign, a YouTube remarketing campaign, a display remarketing campaign, and also a search remarketing campaign, just because there is no reason why not to. If it is not working for you, which I do hear from a third of the people I would audit accounts for, then that's a big red sign. It means that either your remarketing campaign isn't set up correctly, maybe the targeting is too broad, maybe you need to clean some of the traffic and segment it into different placements. Just for example, you might be running a YouTube campaign and you can tag the traffic under UTMs. I'm gonna talk about it, but in general, like just imagine that the URL for the campaign inside Facebook would be your domain name, and then UTM source equals Facebook, and UTM campaign would be wide, lookalike, and remarketing. You want to add those 3 different segments into the audience manager, so when you add it inside the remarketing campaign, you would be able to see which segment reacted in a different way. And you would start seeing, for example, if we're talking about segmenting by days, 7 days, 5 days, 14 days, and 30 days, unlike Facebook, where when you have a bunch of audiences inside one account or one campaign, you won't be able to see which segment really did react, converted, or clicked on the ad. With Google, you can see how each segment, and then exclude it, bid adjust it, and do a bunch of stuff. So a remarketing campaign, again, really simple, but essential. So in here with this structure, what I want you to do is just open up a generic, wide, non-targeted, just like a remarketing campaign. Just get those like 30-day traffic, and hopefully you've set up the audiences early enough to get that segment populated enough for the campaign to actually start running. Custom intent, okay? A big thing that I would want you to use both in the discovery campaign, as I said, but also as a solo campaign on its own. So some people would open up a custom intent audience once they go under audiences, and just like there would be a bottom there that says create a custom intent audience when you set up or launch a campaign. That's not the right way I like to do it. What I like to do, just like I just said, is having all of my audiences set up before I launch the campaign. So when you go into the audience manager, you can click on custom audiences and then the plus sign, and you would have 2 options. The first one would be people with any of these interests or purchase intentions. That would be the default option. That's a good option, but if I have to kind of like compare it into the GDN, the display network, that's kind of like an affinity kind of like audience. It's much more broad. What I want you to do here is select the second option, which is people who search for any of these terms inside Google, okay? And just to emphasize what I'm trying to say, this is so big, it's almost like having a pixel that's just like getting cookies from other sites that don't really belong to you, okay? It's big, use it, okay? This is actually harvesting YouTube as a search engine to the max. So we're gonna create a bunch of audiences. Let me talk about it even more than I got into the presentation, just because I wanna make sure that you guys understand. When we create that type of like audience, you would need at least 20 keywords. So some people would get really generic keywords. Like for example, if you're doing a weight loss product, don't get the word weight loss. It's gonna be high volume and the audience is going to be populated. You're gonna have a lot of traffic, but you're gonna have a lot of garbage traffic as well. So obviously the best way of doing it would be getting inside your search campaign and just getting those keywords that converted from there into that list. But if you do not have a search campaign and you've just launched your Google account, what I would do is open up something like 3 types of custom intent audiences. The first would be just like really long-tailed keywords. So if you know that your supplement is a gummy supplement, just do gummies for weight loss and stuff like that. The other thing would be maybe opening up a competitor list. So if you know that you have 15 other competitors, something like that. But what I'm trying to say is that there would be a graph and you need the balance between the good quality seed traffic that you're bringing into your YouTube campaign and just like, blacked out. Yeah, so the good seed audience and the right volume. So you don't want to be having tons of volume with garbage traffic, and you don't want to have like really small volume with really good traffic because you want to have enough data. Moving on, we're going to talk about an in-market audience that's insights based. So with an in-market audience, you would need to choose 1 to 3 top audiences that you think that would have the biggest correlation, okay? You don't want to start with affinity audiences, honestly, just because an in-market audience would be more niche, would be more laser targeted, and this is what I would suggest that you do. So when you go into audiences, you would have it under browse, in-market audience, and you can just choose specific stuff. So if you know that you have a specific type of like niche or something like that, most likely it's going to be there. I'm going to talk about in-market audience in just a few seconds. 3 really cool stuff that none of the accounts that I audited who were at high scale used. The first one would be channel targeted, okay? So targeting actual channels would require some research. It's, to me at least, it's a game changer just because it's the equivalent of choosing specific placements within GDN, because you get to just advertise on that specific channel. So what you want to do is go into browse, choose YouTube channels, and then just like search for a specific thing. So I would do it in 2 ways. The first way would be using the Google Ads system to actually just like research for a specific channel that would work for me. But the second thing would be actually going on YouTube and making that research for myself and just like adding the URL into the stuff. Again, it's that balance between the number of subscribers within the channel and having a good amount of channels inside your campaign, essentially. Moving on, the next campaign would be suggested audiences, okay? Again, a cool thing, Google added it not too long ago. It's gonna have you use 2 types of really cool audiences. One is based out of like past click performance, and the second one is based on advertisers like you. How you get to do it is when you go into audiences inside your campaign, you can start writing some stuff here. Once you write some stuff here that's not related to anything, you would have 2 options, recent and ideas. You can choose ideas, and you would start seeing that you would have different types of audiences that are either based on click performance or based on advertisers like you, okay? A really cool thing, it has worked like magic for me. So this is just like based on suggested audiences. The other thing, again, I don't see many people use that, which is similar sites. When you go and create an audience, just like I was telling you regarding custom intent, when I was talking about custom intent, you can go and create those audiences that are based on similar sites. I would do just like competitors, blogs and content websites, and then sections within bigger websites that relate to your product. How you open those segments up is by going into custom audiences. And once you just like open up a new custom audience, you would have the people who browsed specific websites similar to, and then you can enter the URLs. Again, segment those stuff up. You want to make sure that you do 3 types of lists. Don't get the competitors with the blogs and with the biggest sites. You want to be able to see how each segment kind of like reacts and optimize according to that. We're going to go into the advanced stuff. So it's kind of like taking each type of like campaign that I was talking about, expanding it and going into a deeper level, okay? So the first part was just like launching those campaigns, making sure that you have the right conversion attribution setup, you have the right audiences. How am I doing? Am I doing good? Well, are you enjoying it? Is it stuff that you haven't? Yeah? Great. Yes.
Ask anything deeper with the questions or anything yet? Or keep going?
I mean, do you guys have any questions before we move on to the deeper stuff?
I maybe have an addition for market or audiences at all.
Project with the voice.
Sorry?
Speak a little bit.
Oh yeah. So when you want to choose an in-market audience, or want to start with an in-market audience, there are actually 2 more ways you can figure out what audience you want to use. So either you go to audience insights.
I'm talking about it.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the way I'm gonna do it.
Analytics as well.
Analytics as well. You can create up to 20 audiences there. Anyone else? Yeah, sure.
So what about responsive ads? So when you start with responsive video ads, there's discovery and in-stream image, right? But you kind of like split, you want to split discovery from the in-stream.
Correct.
But in the responsive ads, you have additionally call to actions, like
Yes.
a button.
So when you connect your YouTube channel, you would have an option of adding a call to action button inside the video if someone watches it. Yes.
So organically.
And what?
Organically, you want to do that.
You can add it. It's not really organically because that call to action button would be for someone who comes from the ad. But yeah, I would definitely make sure that you have analytics set up and connected to Google Ads, YouTube account connected and set up with your Google Ads, just because so many features open up when you do that. So definitely do that and make sure that you have, and the whole discovery flow is really different because you need a video that really, that person wants to be informed, he looked for a specific solution or product, now he sees your video. So the video needs to be really structured in a way, kind of like a VSL type of like product. But again, I would make sure that it fits YouTube and that audience. So I'm gonna go into some of those campaigns that we've just talked about and tell you how we're gonna take it to the next level. Taking it to the next level for me is either optimizing it, making sure that you pay less for the same result, or start scaling it if you like the results, okay? So by this point, we've gone through those campaigns, we've closed the stuff that hasn't worked for us, and now we're gonna scale it even further. So we're gonna use different segments. Just like I told you, unlike Facebook, when you start a campaign and add a custom audience or a bunch of custom audiences inside Facebook, you wouldn't be able to really go and break down the report on how each audience did. So how many clicks, what's the CTR, what's the price per conversion, you wouldn't be able to see it. With Google, you can do it. So when you launch a remarketing campaign, the way it doesn't, or the reason for why it's not working for so many people is that they are not really cleaning up the garbage or the trash from that campaign. Each product would have a different sales cycle. Sometimes it takes a couple of hours for a person to decide he wants to buy. Sometimes it would take a month, depending on the price point, or on the geo, on the niche or market that you are in. So I would go and create those segments and get them inside the campaign. The second layer that I like to do, and I was starting to talk about it, and this is where I would really go in depth, is adding UTM parameters into the custom audience when you set it up, okay? So if you have like a thank you page, I would separate it into people who came like from Facebook, people who came from native and stuff like that. So many people would come to me, tell me, oh my God, once I go through $1,000 a day on my remarketing campaign, the CPA goes up, the garbage is traffic, or sometimes people would tell me the first couple of months, the remarketing campaign on Google was crushing it. I was making so much money. It was averaging like my CPA down to where I need to be at the end of the day. Amazing. And then I don't know what happened. The remarketing campaign got fucked and stuff like that. And I would ask them, okay, what happened during that time point? And usually that person would just like be reminded that he opened up a native ads platform, or just like a cold traffic campaign that's just like a GDN or something like that. And that remarketing traffic that he remarketed within Google was coming out of Facebook. So what the solution would be just like using UTMs and then just adding them into the remarketing campaign, excluding or bid adjusting them within that campaign. So that's how you want to take it to the next level. So yeah, the next thing would be, using audience insights. So that's what Jem was starting to talk about. Amazing way of just like getting more insights on what to scale, where to scale, what different types of targeting would work for me. So when you go into your audience manager, you would want to go into audience insights, one big mistake that people would make here would be not changing the audience that they are really looking at. They would think that if they've chosen an audience inside the audience list and then went inside audience insights, that's the audience that they are looking at. No, you need to make sure that you are looking at the right audience. Also, try not to look at the all converters and all of those generic Google Ads lists, just because they are not really clean as much as you would open up URL-based kind of like audience. That's Cody. So when you go and just like use those insights, my rule of thumb is everything above 3x in index is something that I would want to test. Okay, so that it's gonna be funny because sometimes you would run a cosmetics brand, or maybe just like drop ship some umbrellas, and you would see weird things that don't really correlate with your product or service. You would see trips to Japan and stuff like that. I know it sounds weird. I know it sounds like something you wouldn't target, but that's why we're using audience insights to really choose and see how Google tags them. At the end of the day, if we are going to look at it in a really analytical way, we're just like that. This is the type of like audiences that people just like saw that have the biggest correlation to our product or service, and that's what you want to test. It works good for me. Again, the next thing that I would do in order to scale my campaigns, and that's a great way to expand, because the way I would open up the initial campaign is without any video partners. That's the way that I would just like either duplicate that campaign or just edit it if it's working good and has conversion data, and add video partners if I'm running on a narrow audience and stuff like that. So again, keep in mind that the quality of the seed audience that you're going to use within the custom intent search based keywords would really matter here, because if you have a really wide type of thing, once you open up video partners, it's going to ruin your CPA. Another thing that I like to do when things are working for me inside the channel targeting is just like scaling into more targeted channels. So I would go inside those wider campaigns, for example, the in-market campaign or the custom intent campaign, and just see under placements which channels really performed good. So everything that gets 2-3 conversions, depending on your conversion rate and CPA, of course, is something that I would either open up a specific campaign for, or just like add those channels into the channel targetings. Okay, so if you just look at it as if you are running, for example, on native ads, and you get to see a publisher that's really crushing it, you already got like 15-20 conversions over there, you want to kind of like take over that publisher or that section within the publisher. That's the equivalent of how you do that. Just choose those targeted channels. So I would go and just like get those YouTube channels inside my campaign. Something else that I like doing would be, and that requires a lot of research, would be taking on those YouTube videos. So again, I would either use the data I have from the original campaigns and see if specific videos got anything, or usually I would go into YouTube, search for a specific thing that I would think that someone, for example, how to put on makeup, I don't know, something like that, or if I have a specific direct competitor that has a tutorial or something like that on how to do something, because most people on YouTube would search how to blah blah blah. So that's what you want to take advantage of, and that's how you would build the creatives. Okay, also, so use YouTube videos and just like get them inside the website. Again, I'm on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Grindr. No, add me, guys. If you have any questions, I'm here. That's it. Hopefully that was insightful and you enjoyed it.
Questions, comments. We went through a lot on this one. How many people are spending on Google currently?
That's a lot.
That's a good enough. Okay. Is there anything right now that you guys are stuck with? Is there anything right now that you guys are feeling like you would like a better process around, or structuring of how to grow it, change it? Anything new to test that you would recommend them? Like, if you haven't done this before, what would this be?
I feel like a lot of people are just like starting accounts, and they are kind of like in a proof of concept thing or phase. They would open up a bunch of stuff. They don't want to invest a lot of their times really getting all of those conversions, soft conversions in and stuff like that. And then they would just like get to the point where the campaign is really doing good. And the way that they would build it is really hard for another team when they start scaling, another media buyer to start managing that account, because they would have 200 different kinds of like audiences. You know how it is with Facebook. Sometimes it's an old account and you have tons of custom segments and stuff like that. Just like the way I like to my biggest tip for regarding that would be just invest that extra 30 minutes an hour, build it the right way. Make sure that you have everything in order, because if you wanna, it's just like a kitchen. You wanna make sure that you have everything prepped and set up. So,
yeah. Thanks a lot, man. It was very insightful. I have a lot of questions actually, but we can maybe also talk about it. What about the structure of your whole setup? So, when you start with remarketing and with like the narrow niches, and you have like one campaign for each targeting, and the ad groups are specific audiences, or do you go like one campaign, one ad group, multiple ads, and then try like every targeting at once? So like how's your structure?
All right, so that's an amazing question, and probably I could talk about it for another 45 minutes. But the best answer and the most authentic answer that I can give you would bum you out, because each campaign for me, just because I've been doing it for so long, it's almost like painting a picture. I don't have a correct strategy, and you know what? I had so many fights with my partners. Yes. What would my psychologist say on that mistake? So, I mean, they would tell me, you asked us for specific creatives and you said that we're going to launch with a certain budget and a certain structure. And when you got on the computer and started like setting up those campaigns, you've set up something completely different, you know? And I'm like, you know, it's really dependent on the specific, just like specific product, specific geo, specific stuff that I'm running right now, where it worked. Maybe it didn't work on Facebook and we're crushing natives and stuff like that. So honestly, I can't really give you a specific answer. If you have a specific product or an example, I would just answer to that. If you want to give me a specific thing, what I would do.
So okay, so maybe food. Okay, so I started like a very narrow structure, one campaign, one ad group. But my problem is I do not get enough conversions for one specific campaign. So I put everything together and have like a lot of targetings, a lot of things in one campaign in order to get enough conversions to actually go to the CPA or just swap to the CPA.
All right, so and I'm gonna promote my talk for tomorrow, because it's going to be really good, and I'm gonna talk about that. In my tomorrow talk, and that's one of the tips that I use, and one of my secrets on how to really scale or really get a lot of conversions really fast. What I like doing is opening up a remarketing campaign. When you go into the remarketing campaign, inside the ad group settings, you would have something that's called targeting expansion, okay? Usually Google would want you to kind of like do a certain level of targeting expansion. Since I'm launching a warm audience, a remarketing campaign, I turn it off, okay? That remarketing campaign, just because that traffic is already warm, the conversion rate is going to be much higher there. That means that you're gonna get a lot more conversions into that campaign, okay? And what I like doing, depending on the conversion rate and the metrics and stuff like that, I like getting that specific remarketing campaign, after it got something like 30, 50, 70 conversions, edit it, and once it got those conversions, opening up targeting expansion towards the most aggressive thing that the system allows me to. And the way it works is that 85% of the times that campaign would just become a money machine because the algo already recognized which people convert and it would expand into cold audience. But when you do that, don't forget to duplicate that campaign because you do not have a remarketing campaign now. You have a cold audience campaign. So you need to make sure that you duplicate it and create another remarketing campaign. But that way would help you get a lot of conversions right out of the gate and just like expand into a cold audience that the system helps you find. So it's really manipulating the system into a boost where it gives you more conversions and just feeding the algo more.
I remember that we talked about this at the conference.
Yeah, still works.
I know.
Anything else, guys? Okay, Mr. Shackelford.
Thank you, Maor.